So we talk about what is the right ratio. How much of new things should you implement in your life? Because when you implement too many new things, you get overwhelmed and you go back to your old habits. We're just humans, and we're awesome humans with a lot of different flaws or imperfections or just wrong wiring. And those things are absolutely changeable if we choose to.
Welcome to OTR, Over the Rainbow, Achieving Mental Health for Real. This podcast offers hope to many people who needlessly suffer from mental health issues. Your host, Bob Adelman, brings you information on how you can recover from any mental health issue and achieve a happier life. If you want to know more, please check out his trailer. Bob's notes on today's show follows.
Dominika Staniewicz is my guest today. She is an amazingly accomplished woman who gives back to society with her gift of healing. Dominka originally received an MS in sociology and education and worked as a successful career coach in Europe. When she lost her 16-month-old son, she struggled with depression and low self-esteem. She realized that it was not possible for everything and everyone around her to be wrong or bad. This realization marked the beginning of her transformation journey, where she trained and qualified as an Elite Neuro Encoding specialist at the Neuroencoding Institute with Joseph McClendon III. Come join us as we talk about her approach to trauma, ADHD, and other mental issues.
Now, here's Bob with today's show.
Hello, Dominika. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I am absolutely fantastic. How are you, Bob?
I'm doing good. Could you explain what is your background and what do you do now?
My background in education, ESL teaching. Then I got my degrees in sociology and communication. Then I got my degrees in HR, and then I studied under Dr. Amen, who is a neuropsychiatrist, Joseph McClendon III, who has a PhD in neuropsychology. For over 3 years now, I have been coaching, and I'm a brain coach and a neuroencoding specialist. And in the past, for about 15 years, I was a career coach. So I've been in this industry for quite a while. And I love coaching that is backed up by science. And because the science has progressed and we have so many studies, and we can now look into your brain, how the neurons work, which parts of your brain light up, which parts of your brain shut down, depending on a stimuli, we're actually able to decipher what your brain does and make it, basically rewire it.
Okay. The question I normally ask someone is about their childhood. So how was your childhood?
Well, my childhood was actually pretty normal, despite the fact that I'm epileptic and I had epileptic seizures. And I think those were pretty big, had a pretty big impact on my childhood. Another thing that was maybe out of the ordinary is that till the age of 6, my mom was raising me with my grandma. And then after that, my mom got remarried to a great guy who I call my dad. He is my stepdad. But, so that would be probably the most important parts of my childhood. But other than that, I would go like any European kid for holidays. I would go to the forest, go to camps, learn, and spend time with kids playing, go to school, have extracurricular activities. So there was nothing that was traumatic, let's say, in my childhood.
Okay, yeah, that's what I try to understand. If anything comes from a history of abuse or anything like that, you'd be surprised how many people say that they've been abused by their parents or relatives and stuff. It's really terrible. So, that's why you get a lot of people with the PTSD and causes a lot of problems.
Trauma is something perceived by a person, right? So besides the obvious trauma where you get beat, raped, or, physically abused, trauma can take many faces. And sometimes our brain creates trauma where trauma is not necessarily the best, let's say, course of action, but your brain over-exaggerates and it creates trauma. Now, don't get me wrong, there are traumatic experiences and trauma does happen. But often also, because of our environment and because of our fragility, we experience things that are not traumatic experiences, as trauma. So it is very important to kind of self-reflect and also give more power to ourselves, not necessarily our feelings, which are extremely tied with our brain and with chemical releases. And what you feel is the chemicals your brain releases and how your body responds.
Right.
And that now, with the knowledge that we have, can be controlled.
Right. Yeah, I've heard about it. I grew up with ADHD before anybody even knew what that was. So they just figured I was out of it, and they kind of just ignored me. And I mean, I had a decent childhood because I was kind of in a bubble. I didn't know anything about the world. I would just try to be as happy as I could be. But I had different problems. I'd be in the hallway most of the time in school because I was bad, because I was crazed with boredom and not being able to concentrate, and taking tests where I couldn't write. It's especially bad in my old age. I mean, just about 2 years ago, it probably moved up a couple notches to the point where I have trouble even writing a sentence. I can't write a sentence that's correct. It's always got to be wrong, and then I rewrite it 5 times. But now, if I walked in, and I don't know where you're located, but let's say I just came in and said, I have all these problems. What do you think you can do to help me? Now, what I have is ADHD, OCD, depression, anxiety, blah, dyslexia. So I'm kind of a real mess, and I think a lot of people are looking for that final step because, I'm stable. I don't have any problems with, going in and out of hospitals, anything like that. But I have a lot of problems, and I don't know my next direction. I think a lot of people are looking for that final push over the hill to say, I'm happy. I mean, I don't know how many people can say they're happy. Nowadays, it doesn't seem like many people are happy, but I want to be able to say, wake up in the morning and say I'm happy and stay that way. But it doesn't happen. With me, it's basically people. Because I make a lot of mistakes and because my family abused me and cut me off and made fun of me and everything, I have a lot of problems with people. I have what I call the demons on my back that tell me, you can't do it, you can't do it. And then I'll go into an anxiety attack type of thing. So somebody like myself, other than taking ADHD medicine, what can you do for someone that is trying to make it over that hill?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry you're experiencing all of that. Experiences are something that lead our life and generate certain feelings and how we live our life, and they kind of determine. And it is interesting. So one of the things I've heard you say is something that a lot of people do. But before we get there, first thing I would ask the person, do you really want that change? Because it will require a lot of work. There's nothing I can do per se for a person. There's a lot of things I can open your eyes to, which you will have to do to change. And that's a huge misconception that, psychologists, therapists, psychiatrists, all of us, and coaches like me, because I'm a coach, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist. We do things for you. No, we are able to show you and let you discover the best way to get yourself out of it, because your world is not my world. And with that being said, one thing that I've noticed when you were discovering and you were describing what's happening with you is the idea of generalization. So what happens in your brain every time I make a lot of mistakes, people don't like me, people feel, anytime you make a general statement, for your brain, it becomes overwhelming. It is so, so important to learn to speak in precise examples. So, for example, I don't get along with my mother, because if I would ask you, is there anybody in this world that you do get along with? What would you answer?
Oh, there's several. With me, if people make it past my ADHD, then they like me, but they don't make it past that.
Okay.
They think I'm rude. They think I interrupt. They think this and that.
The question is, are there people you get along with?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So the moment you say, I don't get along with people, you basically disregarded everybody you do get along with. And getting along doesn't mean long term. It can be at a store. It can be at a regular conversation like we're having. It could be at any point in time. So actually, it is not true you don't get along with people. And what happens
I'm just saying, for a lot of people, I mean, I may get along with, let's say, to be exact, maybe like 5% of the people I ever meet, I want to keep continuing that relationship. Everybody else, I don't want to have a relationship with because...
And that's absolutely fantastic. Most people are just like you. I meet a lot of people, but my close friend circle is very small. I choose my friends very carefully, and that's maybe 10, 15%, maybe a little bit more, but not much more.
Okay.
So the truth is that you actually are very normal when it comes to that part. And you do get along with people. But when we generalize, in our brain, we create this monster. Generalization is one of the biggest monsters we can create for ourselves because it's our words that are coming out of us. And when we lump everything together, it becomes hopeless. Okay. All men are bad. All women are angry. All this, all that.
I don't say all. I just say most. I can't. It's not that they're bad. I just can't get along with them. We don't click, and it's a whole social anxiety thing. I cannot pick up when people are finished talking and step in. I either try to step in and I'm cut off, or somebody cuts me. In other words, people know when somebody's finished talking. I have a real big problem with that. So it's almost like I've given up. I don't like to talk to anybody unless it's one-on-one. Because if it's through two even, they ignore me completely. Like I'm invisible.
Well, this is your perception. And that might be true, that might not be true. Sometimes when you look at, there is this exercise I do with teenagers, and if I work with groups of adults, and we put a number 68 on a piece of paper, and on top of it, there are people standing on the left and on the bottom. And I ask them, what number do you see? One person sees 89. The other people see 68. Question is, are they both correct?
Yes.
Yes. Is it okay that they see different things looking at the same thing?
I mean, yeah. That's reality.
And our reality is created by what we believe. Another example, let me see. Let's not do the tragic one. When you believe that something is true, and it's true that there are great people in the world, and there's also true that there are some horrible people in the world. Both of them are true. Whatever you decide to concentrate on will become your reality. So one of the things in my path, what I used to work on, and very often a lot of people, I find this is helpful for people, is that I've decided that I will concentrate and look for people smiling back at me. And I will just concentrate on that. So I would smile to people on the street like a crazy person. And if they smiled back, I would count. And it turned out that most people, with time I've noticed that most people actually smiled back because people were searching for friendly people.
Right.
So I've decided that I will concentrate on that. Were there people who didn't smile back or rolled their eyes? Absolutely. But I just ignored them. And my experience of that day was very different. When you're saying, for example, another generalization that is very dangerous for a lot of people, I had a bad day. The question is, was the whole day bad? And then you go, well, not really. That person in that moment pissed me off. Okay, great. How long did that last? Well, 2 hours. So actually, out of 16 hours, you had 2 bad hours, and you're calling it a bad day? And then your brain goes, no, okay, I had 2 bad hours. So actually the day was good. See, It is our attention, what we choose to concentrate on. Depression is also, there are different types of depression. Like, there are so many different types, and some of them are self-induced. One of the things I do with my clients, I ask all of my clients to do blood work.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not having enough of neurotransmitters and a few other things, you will feel depressed.
Yeah.
Because you don't have enough of neurotransmitters in your blood. So that is first thing we got to check when we're feeling down. We have something called seasonal depression that comes from not having enough sunlight.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite simple to go outside and take that sunlight in for 20 minutes, preferably in the morning.
Right.
Supplements are available everywhere. And I had a few clients who, after we did those simple things, they go, I'm great. I'm like, I thought you might not need me.
Mm-hmm.
So go on your merry way and enjoy your life.
Yeah, I guess what my issue is, I always seem to be on the brink of disaster. Everything is a big disaster. If I think a bad thought, that's a disaster. I mean, the problem is ADHD people do generalize. I mean, they don't do details. I don't do details. The problem is I could look at a sentence and read it, and it won't be right what I read or what I wrote. It's a backwards brain problem, and
but who says you got to write it?
Well, I'm just saying it's something that I think a lot of people with ADHD are very almost angry about because.
Yes, but not all of them are angry. Not all of them have problems with writing. Not all of them
Right.
are withdrawn.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So one of my clients has 4 types of ADHD in her brain, and we found strategies, but she chose to look for solutions. And she learned, like we learned to walk, we learned to talk, we learned to do other things, like you learned how to do podcasts. To do podcasts and do editing, you got to be detail-oriented.
Well, no, not exactly. All right, when you make a statue of something, you chisel away, right? That's what I do for everything. So there's no, okay, I'm just going to produce a statue from nothing. I take this big block of cement, whatever you want to call it, and I chisel off maybe a masterpiece. But that came at a price. I had to get so worked up and get the dopamine in my brain to concentrate. And then I go into what's called super focusing, where, I pretty much over focus.
And there are strategies you can get rid of that. Everybody who has ADHD and has problems with tunnel vision, over focusing, do Qigong in the morning.
What is it?
10 minutes. 10 minutes of Qigong. It changes your brain pattern waves.
Yeah, what is
Qigong? It's called Qigong. It's an exercise coming from China, and it has proven to work great with people who have ADHD. Also, when you're working, put on bilateral music. It calms down your brain.
Yeah, music is very important to me.
So that's yeah. So there are ways we can work with our brain, and I'm not diagnosing you. I'm just responding to what you're saying. There are millions of strategies for people with ADHD that they can choose to have a more or less normal life, whatever normal is, and they can enjoy their life. Yet they have to choose to enjoy.
Yeah.
They have to look for things to enjoy. And
yeah, because
no, are you enjoying this conversation?
Somewhat, but the problem is, it's not you, it's me. Before I get on to every conversation here, I have to go through all of this nervousness, which is very uncomfortable. And then it produces the right amount of dopamine to get me interested in doing it. Otherwise, I'll just sit there and go, bleh. I'm just a total apathetic person unless something interests me. I turn everything else off, and I can't help it. I don't think anybody can help it. I think a lot of my depression comes from that, but I'm kind of getting on a tangent. I didn't mean to go down a rabbit hole here. Let's talk about your book. You wrote a book. Could you give us the title and what it's about?
Absolutely. So the book is an antidotum to people who always been taught that you have to burn your boats and do a revolution in your life, that you have to press through and everything has to be big and overwhelming. It's a recipe for people who are looking to grow, for people who want to achieve success, but they have not maybe went through trauma, or they don't want a revolution in their life. They just want to grow at a steady pace without the overwhelm. And the name of the book is The Magic of Dreaming Big, Acting Small, and Achieving Success. And it is, as for people who get overwhelmed, a very short book. It has 64 pages. And the goal of it is to have no excuse not to read it. The goal for it is that the cost of the book is about your coffee. This book can change your life, but coffee won't. And it has exercises, it has stories, it has examples, it has science, and it has worksheets that you can download through a QR code. And it is very practical. And I did it short on purpose because people who get overwhelmed easily, and there's a lot of intense knowledge and not very precise, they get either bored or they say, oh, that's too much, I'm not going to do it. So this caters to people who feel like this is way too much, and or they fail at their goals, or they don't know how to celebrate. Your brain absolutely needs celebration, and we practice celebration in the book. There are some things you can do without even practicing because you're literally wired to feel good when you do them, and that's one of the things that is brought up. We're talking about being out of comfort zone, right? What is the right ratio of being out of comfort zone? Because we keep hearing, oh, you got to be out of comfort zone to grow. Yes, but you're not productive when you're out of comfort zone. Your productivity and your effectiveness is in the things you know how to do well and you feel comfortable with. So we talk about what is the right ratio? How much of new things should you implement in your life? Because when you implement too many new things, you get overwhelmed and you go back to your old habits. We're just humans, and we're awesome humans with a lot of different flaws or imperfections or just wrong wiring. And those things are absolutely changeable if we choose to.
I mean, that sounds really good. I'll have to check out the book. I can afford a cup of coffee, so it'd probably be worth it if it's on. And that's the kind of book I read, 64 pages. Beyond 64 pages, I give up.
For people with ADHD, I would highly suggest, first of all, not to self-diagnose. I would also highly suggest to get a SPEC scan for people with ADHD. Also see which type of ADHD do you have, which brain type. Because depending on where your ADHD is in your brain, you will have different strategies that need to be implemented. In some cases, medication is absolutely necessary, but in a lot of cases, supplements will do the work for you and you will not need to go on medication. Now, again, first, do not self-diagnose. Make sure you go to a doctor, and not a doctor that will ask you, oh, do you feel overwhelmed? Of course you do. Everybody does. Do you sometimes lose yourself in your work? Of course you do. Most people do. So there are a lot of things that people that have ADHD, also people without ADHD have as well. So it's important to get your brain scanned at a SPEC scan facility to see where is the slowdown or the uptick in your brain, in which part of your brain. What type of ADHD do you have? Some of ADHD can be treated with supplements and with lifestyle changes. Some of it won't. But it's great to explore different avenues. And what's keeping a lot of behaviors is the patterns that we run, because our brain is designed to conserve energy. Anytime your brain has to think, per se, or do something new, it requires more energy. If it's easier to go back to old behavior, old pattern, old habit, old neural wiring, then that's what it's going to do. And it will take effort to change that. Yet it is changeable.
It does. One question I had before we go. You have a way to get rid of anxiety. What would you recommend for people with really bad anxiety?
Well, first of all, we need to discover what type of anxiety do you have. Second of all the scientific data that I've read and Dr. Amen and psychologists are saying, anxiety comes from living in the future. So what will they think of me? They will not like me. They will this, they will that. Breaking that pattern is the first thing. A lot of my clients, I definitely ask them to change their lifestyle. We do a lot of walking, breathing exercises. We also go on swings because swings calm down your nervous system. So going on a swing for 10 minutes a day, if you have the ability, is absolutely recommended. The sleep patterns, what time do you go to sleep? And also learning new behaviors and not reinforcing anxiety. So anxiety shows up at everybody. When I go on stage 10 minutes before, I literally do exercises on myself, not to go into, oh my God, what are they going to think of me? Maybe they will not like me. Maybe this, maybe that, maybe this. And that aggravates my nervous system. So I work on myself to calm myself down and assume and concentrate on things that I can control. And the truth is, most of the time it goes great. And if it doesn't, then I can work on it. So it is learning new behaviors. Anxiety, it is absolutely behaviorally based. And when you work yourself up, your brain releases cortisol and all the other chemicals that make you feel tense. One of my clients had anxiety to a point where she would go to a public room and she would faint. It took us 3 months of work, hard work that she did under my guidance. And after about 3 months, she sent me a text, Dominika, I spoke with 5 people. It was amazing. Now, it was her hard work and following the instructions. And I'm going to make this very clear. No one can change your life but you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe that. With me, it's basically constant bombardment of why I'm going to screw up. It's constant performance anxiety. I mean, all the time. And it's very hard.
Well, you didn't screw up our interview. You did great.
Oh, I mean, once I get the dopamine, I'm good. I mean, but it's the in-betweens. You know, I don't know if I'm autistic a little bit, but I'm a little bit off the wall most of the time. And people don't, well, I fake as good as anybody. I can mask my problems, but I don't want to mask my problems anymore. I want, people to understand that, I have this type of brain and you have to accept me for it or else it's no good. Well, and they do. And some people just don't care. I'll tell them I have it and I don't care. And we get along great. I mean, I have really good friends, but, other people like my children, my adult children, which I mention on every broadcast, they're totally different than me. They have religion. They have all these set ways that they're set, and they don't want to bother with me anymore. So that hurts. But that's one thing I have to process and get over because, I didn't expect it came out of left field. They just did some things that were not too good. I did some things that were not too good. And so now we don't get along at all. But I mean, the real big problem is that how do you get rid of this anxiety?
It is absolutely doable if you choose to and work on it. There are techniques. It will be uncomfortable and it will take time, but anxiety is absolutely treatable with no medication, but with controlling what your brain does. And you have the power of that. You do. No matter if you have ADHD brain, autistic brain, whatever other brain you have, you can control your thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, I'm working on it, but some days it works. Some days like yesterday, I just woke up and a real estate person was coming. I got super nervous about it. It's just ridiculous. She came, she went, who cares? But I think I have this voice in my head all the time.
And that's okay. There are better days and worse days. And that's okay. We all have good and bad days. And it has nothing to do with any type of brain. We're human.
I mean, I think my anxiety is really caught up in my own head. With the OCD, it just goes round and round and round. Same thing all the time. And I try to fight it. I really do. But it's very difficult to keep your demons away from, really attacking you at certain times.
At certain times.
It's hard.
But at other times, it is easy to keep it away. And when you concentrate on those times that is easy, they'll be more prominent and they'll come over more and more until one day you'll notice that you're not experiencing it.
Yeah. I mean, I like to get through December without really getting real bad anxiety. I know that's bad for a lot of people. The holidays, it's over. That's good. They can check out your book. Do you have a website?
I do. You go www.yourbraincoachd.com.
Okay, and I have all your other links. I'll put them all in the description of the program. What I do at the end is I just allow you to say whatever you want. If you don't want to say anything, that's okay too. To kind of wrap things up.
Okay, no problem.
Do you want to say something?
I think. I'm all good. Okay. I said everything I wanted to say. I think it was a great conversation. Yeah, you did fantastic.
Yeah, I apologize to everybody at the end because I know I run off. I cut out most of the stuff when I'm running off, so the program will come out great. And so, yeah. Okay, I appreciate your time. I know you're busy, and I thank you a lot for having patience with me. And,
fantastic.
I'm going to check out this book, and we'll see.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Maybe I'll give you another call. All right. Thanks a lot.